Representative?
Thank you. I'm Representative Wilson from Alaska. I told my I'll go first if I could do a call a friend, and since my timekeeper is sitting here so close, and he kept us on time. We started on time, we finished on time, and we got through everything. Of course, everybody is on committees now, so we'll see how that works. I'm just going to run through it. You guys know how to read, and at least I'm assuming that. So I'm just going to go through the points and our conclusions, and then if people have more questions about that, they can go with that. So the process of admitting credentials required, this would be from our understanding of those who were going to attend the Convention of the States. Indianapolis did an awesome job when it came to it, so we're going to look at their pattern and not just require the same pattern if we have a Convention of the States, but for future planning meetings, and just keep doing the same thing so people know what kind of ID they need to bring to be able to show that they're part of this. Convention staffing and security, again, one of the big discussions that we had is how do you pick the next cities, not just the city where maybe the Convention of the States might be held, but for each one of the planning, because Georgia was nice to step up to the plate yesterday and volunteer their city, and there was a lot of people volunteering to take that place if things didn't happen. But so we really do need a process so every city, has that opportunity. The committee decided yesterday that they'd like to see the future ones done in buildings, in the state buildings, so that it makes the states more active. Usually it's a little bit more affordable. They already have security. Looking at doing things during weekdays versus weekends so that perhaps things won't cost as much because those things are already in place. But we are going to have a committee put together, a subcommittee that will have a process so that something can be actually mailed out to the House and speakers of each, the speaker and the Senate of each one of our states, so that everybody has an opportunity, if they want to be able to host an activity like this. Oath of office, this was a really interesting one for us. First of all, we were wondering why it was in our committee versus judiciary. But again, when it comes to the convention, as far as the oath of office goes, that's really up to each state, because the states will determine, what their delegates can and can't do, whether or not to pull them or not. We don't need another layer over, what the states determine. So that would be done, for instance, those who've already passed laws in their states have already required oaths, but you would not have to do that. And so we're hoping everybody does, and we have some that feel very strongly about that. But again, this is about each and every state and their representation and the control that they have with their delegates and what they want them to do during a Convention of the States. Number 4, define if meetings will be open or closed. Obviously open. The more open and transparent we are, we're wanting to bring, our constituents with us. They want to see this done. We want them to be able to follow along the way as they go. Methods of recording proceedings of full body and committees, again, that would be part of the packet that we're going to mail to each one who wants to be able to participate in this. Yesterday, I don't know whether you realized it, but you were being streamed, and as long as you were hitting the little blue button, you were being streamed. I don't know how good we did, but we were trying. But that's a great way. People do things on the web, recordings. Maybe there's a way as a website gets put up that those recordings can be played, because again, if you want to pass something in your state, you're going to need those in your community helping you push it forward. Makes things much easier. So the more we can keep them involved, the better off. Time and location selection process of the convention. Again, we were kind of interested. So like any good legislatures and legislators is that we're going to tell the judiciary group what they should do. And we want them to make sure that the federal government knows that we, the states, will pick the time and the place for a Convention of the States. So I don't know whether the judiciary has a subcommittee, but we're kind of sending you a little direction on how we feel about that. But I also understand judiciary is trying to figure out whether or not Congress gets to do that or whether that happens once one gets called. Time and location selection, as I said, Georgia was gracious enough to step up to the plate to start with. So what we were trying to do is make sure that we didn't step on NCSL or ALEC. I just found out this morning that ALEC is meeting on the 3rd, 4th, and 5th. So we're recommending that the possibility of being able to meet the 1st and the 2nd, maybe the afternoon of the 1st. It's a Monday right after Thanksgiving. We don't want people to have to necessarily travel on that Sunday and pay a whole lot of money. Maybe it could be like an afternoon meeting, or just maybe one full day on that Tuesday, because again, there's only going to be action to do at the next one if your subcommittees and your committees are doing their work and has something to come back and report to us. So a little pressure to those who volunteered. And just so you know, everybody in our group volunteered. They're a great committee. So that's why we have the 1st and 2nd on that. Convention financing, this is the other one that really took a lot of time for our committee. whether or not this entity should be a nonprofit, first of all. If it's a nonprofit, are we going to go for a C4, 6, are we going to be asking the federal government for permission not to pay taxes, or do we just set it up as an entity and deal with the taxes on its own? So what we did is that we have a subcommittee, but we made it with a deadline on July 1st, telephonically, computer-wise. We'll set it up for any committee members that can participate. On the 1st, we'll have all the information to people at that point, and we're going to vote on, which way and send it back to the executive committee. We know that a lot of the people on the executive committee have had to put a lot of out-of-pocket expense, and that is not our intent as a committee either, but we want to make sure how we set this up is in the best fashion and makes sense to those who are able to give. And then the big question is, who gives? And as most of you know, as you run your campaigns, a lot of constituents feel like those who give you more money get more time with you. Now, whether that's true or not, good luck trying to say that, because I do all the time. And they're like, yeah, sure, right, So who gives and who doesn't? We want to try, and I know everybody says to keep the politics out of it, and we all know realistically how hard that's going to be. But the more transparent we can make it, and make it so that the people can give funds as well, but I think we need to be very careful about the big donations and making it appear that others are running this versus the states are running it. Or maybe the states are going to have to step up and determine how they want to participate and make it completely about the states giving to this process. So to me, that's one of the biggest decisions that need to be made, is that financing portion of it. Budget creation and communication process, again, we have a subcommittee that's going to pull together everything it took for the Mount Vernon, also for Indianapolis, how much did it cost, not just how much we had to pay out of pocket, but those things that were even given in kind, because every state capital may or may not be able to do that. So again, we can look at what that would cost. Also taking it the next step to a convention. The other discussion was, will we charge each state the same amount of money, because they will be responsible for getting their delegates there, for paying their hotel, doing the travel, but there will have to be one venue, and how much will that venue cost? So the other part of the discussion, would you charge each delegate, so the bigger states if they brought more, or if judiciary decided one vote, one state, would it make more sense to have it by the state? So that was our other discussion, and then what you'll see at the end is our subcommittees, and we plan on doing a whole lot of work in the interim between now and December. I had the best committee. I'll just tell you that. My committee was awesome. I mean, they ran the meeting. We really discussed things, as far down as we could get to at this point. But just the commitment to work on this from now till December, because we can't just plan on coming here for a day and a half and expect to get it all done. So with that, that's what we did.
Thank you, Madam Chairwoman. At this time, if there are comments, questions, accusations of any kind, members of the committee, it may be against me.
You didn't tell me that one when I went first.
That's right. At any time, if anyone would like to come forward, and if you would rather simply stand up at your chair and ask a question, that's fine. I'll repeat it for purposes of everyone else here. Any comments or questions about the Planning, Communications, and Finance report? Yes, sir.
Representative John Wood from Florida, and our chairman did an outstanding job. And to follow up on Senator Long's request for funding, I want to make a challenge right here. I will match up to $5,000 of anyone that donates money to our cause. And I personally believe that the states and the legislators in those states should fund this effort, because this is a sacred duty, and I'm just honored to be part of it. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Senator Long.
If I might, thank you, President Wood, appreciate it. We had a lively discussion in the Planning Committee yesterday about the structure of how we ought to pay for this, and one of the things we arrived at is that it's probably not feasible until there's actually a convention for the states to pay. And one of the problems would be that, a lot of us don't come back into session until January. In Indiana, it's the budget year next year, so even if the state were to appropriate money, we probably couldn't get anything appropriated until May of 2015 in this state. And also, because we're not officially in a convention, there might be questions about when it's appropriate to use taxpayer money and when it's not. It was a great discussion, and it came down to where the Madam Chair and a subcommittee will work on a structure that they're going to recommend. One of the things I think they're going to do is recommend to the executive committee whether it should be a for-profit or a not-for-profit entity, and that will be done before July 1st. At that time, then we'll have some kind of funding mechanism, hopefully, Mr. Chairman and Madam Chair, and that will be that's sort of where we arrived at the end of that discussion. But thank you, Representative Wood, for your generous offer there. It's appreciated, and we'll ultimately have a good system here with the ways for the average Americans to contribute to this cause online. We're just not there yet. So,
thank you, Senator. One comment I wanted to make is there was some, which I thought was healthy competition regarding comments about the best state capital to have our next event, and that's the kind of discussion I think that we need to have. The members of the committee, I think, however, need to do due diligence. This was an excellent location, and we had a person doing due diligence for the last 6 months who was the president of the Indiana Senate. And it may be that there are locations that work as well as this, but we can't presume that. There are all sorts of things that go into this, and which Representative Kappinga asked us to consider, which are things like travel schedules, the time of year, the size of the chambers, the costs, the locations of hotels, the willingness of the local leadership, whether Speaker or President of the Senate, to loan their staff. All of those things need to be go into the mix. So it's something that it's not a decision we can take lightly. And I know some may view the real work of this as what are going on in judiciary and rules and procedure. And in the end, that's what we're trying to produce. But we can't make the journey if our car won't start. So that's really important work that the Planning and Communications and Finance Committee will have to get going. So that's my pep talk for being involved in all of the work that has to be done. Other comments or questions about the report of the committee? All right, seeing none, that was a comprehensive report, Madam Chairwoman. Thank you very much.
And let me just add one thing
Yes.
to what you said on a place. The reason, we did discuss about having a process in place even for the December one, but knowing how long it takes to be able to develop that, get the questionnaire together, get it to the right people and back, we thought it was much smarter to go ahead and go with somebody that we believe that had the venue already, also jumped, out there to do, and I really do appreciate that. But for us, it is very imperative for the next ones to make sure that everybody does have the opportunity. And one thing, we did talk about is like in the winter, looking at the southern states. And so some of those in the northern were like, it's too cold. Of course, Alaska, it's never too cold. And then flipping it, in the summertime, so you have those. But I think by having it at the state capitals, even for those who just really even aren't sure about the process, if you really want to get them into the process, you got to somehow get them involved, because if they sit there on the sidelines, we could do all the work we want, and if we can't, and there was a discussion this morning about, well, what if we can't get 38 states to agree on anything? What are we doing? Well, first of all, what we're doing is we're coming together as states, which is just awesome. If we don't start showing the federal government that we can at least come in one room and have, we had some lively discussions, and we brought them in, and we brought, we kind of sent them back out too, because it really was about each state and being able to put their points down on there. But you're going to have to go home and figure out what you can pass that are similar to those that are, or if you have a better idea. But if we never get to the 38, all this is great, and I think we're going to strive, because we are coming together about a process. But at the end of the day, we can't have a convention of any kind if we don't have enough resolutions and force the hands of the federal government. So that's my little pep talk. Thanks.
Thank you very much. Thank you for your report.